Developed by Criterion, the creators of the Burnout series, Black was intended to be a chaotic, outrageous, badass action shooter that encourages the player to literally pump everything in the environment full of hot lead with their ridiculously monstrous firearms. And in every aspect of their original intention, Criterion has succeeded beyond what they had hoped for this game. Black is an immersive, no-holds-barred, highly over-the-top experience, and its adrenaline-pumping, action-driven gameplay virtually never slows down from start to finish. In essence, Black is designed to be an explosive head-on collision with the first-person shooter genre. Right from the start, the game forces you into the most hectic, chaotic sort of combat zone you've ever encountered, and it just leaves you there for the next 5 to 6 hours, depending on the difficulty setting you choose. This, in many ways, is a good thing. There are no slow parts to the game, and it never gets dull or boring. It definitely never loses momentum because you're flying through the game at hair-raising speed, and there's just so much chaos and action happening around you that you never really have time to think about anything but killing everyone and destroying everything in sight. This is a good thing because there's not much else to Black's gameplay other than causing massive amounts of death and destruction. It's very simplistic when you think about it because pretty much all you do in the game is just shoot, and you shoot a whole lot. Ammo isn't exactly a rare commodity in Black, so there's really no reason to conserve it, and the game really encourages you to just unload your assault rifle into everything you see. There are tons of destructible objects, tons of things to blow up, and of course, tons of enemies to mow down time and time again. There are actually so many explosive things in the game that you'll just want to sweep an entire area with gunfire, just so you can see what's going to explode next. Probably the only other types of games in which you've seen this type of destruction is World War II shooters. But even if you added up every explosion you've seen in every World War II game you've ever played or seen played, I'm pretty confident the figures wouldn't stand up to the ridiculous amount of explosions you'll see in Black. And speaking of explosions, Black's graphics are an achievement of their own. It's surprising how much power Criterion managed to squeeze out of the Xbox hardware, because everything in Black looks fantastic. There's great muzzle flashes, bright explosions, you'll just see clouds of dust and debris kicked up by bullets spattering a brick or plaster wall, and this is where the game's presentation really stands out from other first-person shooters. In most first-person shooters, the graphical emphasis is somewhat balanced between making the characters and environments look good, and making the weapons have interesting and satisfying effects in order to boost the action. Black's emphasis on the graphical side of things is totally tilted towards boosting the action, because like I said earlier, you have little time to think about anything but the action. If you're in the middle of a hallway and just one or two enemy soldiers come charging in, the hectic firefight can cause clouds of dust and debris so thick you lose almost all visibility, and you just have to keep firing and firing until the dust settles and all the enemy soldiers are laying dead at your feet. At first you wouldn't think clouds of dust and debris could be something that make for a truly unique sort of action experience, but at first glance of the effects that a single 3-round burst from your submachine gun can cause, it becomes evident that you're not going to get this level of detail to the action anywhere else. It's actually surprising how good of a job Criterion did making the action and chaos the front seat of this game. Black, however fun and unique in its presentation, is unfortunately not a perfect game, and there are a few cons about the game that caught my attention. The first and most obvious would be the simplicity of the gameplay. Even though the gameplay is indeed fun to no end and an extremely satisfying experience, the gameplay virtually never changes from start to finish. Literally all you do in Black is shoot, and this isn't bad. It doesn't get boring, and it's fun all the way through, but if you're looking for an extra level of depth to gameplay, it's just not there with Black. The presentation does manage to counterbalance this, however, and it keeps the experience thrilling and exciting. The game's innovations come with its presentation, not with its gameplay. And the gameplay is not bad, it's just not going to change the world. The second, and probably the most important con for most people, would be Black's total lack of any sort of multiplayer modes. There's no co-op, no online, no split-screen PvP, nothing but the relative 5 to 6 hour single-player campaign. This is especially surprising since Black's single-player presentation is virtually unmatched. I was terribly disappointed that a PvP multiplayer mode had not been added, because I could only imagine the sort of destruction one might have been able to cause other human players online, and how chaotic it could have been. Since the emphasis was obviously placed on the campaign mode, you'd think Criterion could have at least added a split-screen cooperative option that let you sit on the couch and blow the crap out of stuff with your buddy. This, sadly, is also absent from what begins to feel like an incomplete game when you really start to consider the almost sinful implications of not adding a multiplayer element to a first-person shooter game, especially one as intense as Black. I was actually so disappointed by the lack of a multiplayer option that it even sort of hurt my feelings. though this might explain why Black was released at $10 less the average retail value of other Xbox games. Another thing that slightly disappointed me about Black was the apparent lack of blood and gore. Here you have this game that lets you cause so much death and destruction, you'd think they'd at least add some quick blood spray and decals to the enemy death animations, but it's not there. This isn't something that detracts from the overall experience. I just didn't understand why they would take out such a simple element as blood from such a violent and destructive game. I really wanted to give Black an 8 for its amazing presentation. Unfortunately, its core gameplay doesn't exactly merit such a high rating, even though the visceral experience of the game does. As is, I'll give the game a 7, which I classify as worth playing. Its lack of multiplayer might hurt it for some people, but it is playable on the Xbox 360, and playing through Black is an explosive experience unlike any you'll have with any other shooting game. And for that, you should definitely check it out.
You expect me to believe we had a terror cell working for us?
Your safety is our concern. We live and breathe your fears, what ifs, worst case scenarios. A hidden world, behind the headlines, behind the suits waving the flag, protecting your fragile existence. A world that doesn't exist.